Warning, what you're about to hear may be considered disturbing. Robert Pickton, a quiet pig farmer from Canada, was hiding an extremely horrifying secret. He was in fact the most prolific serial killer in Canada, perhaps all of North America, and how he would go about hiding his crimes will absolutely disgust you. With all the attention Jeffrey Dahmer has been getting lately, it should be stated that Robert Pickton is by far worse than Dahmer. Where Dahmer kept his crimes between him and his victims, Pickton would make his crimes worldwide, and I will get to that in a minute. After his parents would pass away a short time apart from each other in 1978, Robert would then proceed to take over the family's pig farm in 1980. Many of the workers who worked on the farm would call Pickton a quiet yet very nice guy, but a bit of an oddball at times. They said he would sometimes have random outbursts out of nowhere to himself, be caught talking to himself, and making weird facial gestures to the pigs. As the employees would go home for the night, Robert would stay there and lure women to his farm. He would mainly target the homeless and sex workers. He would bring them to the farm by winning their trust with his nice guy act. Once he brought them into his trailer located in the farm, that is where the real nightmare would begin. He would either take a syringe full of antifreeze and inject it into his victims, or he would strangle his victims. Those who were injected with the antifreeze would suffer from hours of excruciating pain as they were slowly being poisoned. When you think it doesn't get any worse, whether dead or alive, Robert would take his victims and lash them on the meat hooks. As the hooks dug into their back, he would then proceed to butcher them the same way one would butcher a cow or a pig. This is where the story becomes even more disturbing. Robert would then proceed to take the bodies and grind them up in his meat grinder. I remember where I said Robert Pickton's crimes were worldwide. Well, he would take the grounded up corpse and feed them to his pigs, the same pigs that would be sent to distributors as gelatin. Gelatin, which is used to make jello, candies, soups, vitamins, and more. And it should be noted that he was doing these crimes between 1980 and 2002, 40 years giving these pigs to popular worldwide distributors. So as you watch this video, yes, it's very possible you may have eaten one of his victims. Pickton would then decide to take the rest of the flesh and guts and turn them into sausage. He would then feed these exact same sausages made from his victims to his neighbors. Robert and his employees would hold a big popular concert on his farm known as the Piggy Palace. Robert would then give out free meat to everyone from concert goers to his employees, and unbeknownst to everyone but Robert, they were eating sausages and other pork products made from his victims. In 1997, a woman by the name of Wendy Lynn Eistetter would be the next of Robert's victims. A sex worker picked up by him and brought back to the trailer on the farm. Once finished engaging in consensual sex, Wendy would call her boyfriend. That's when all of a sudden, Robert locked one of Wendy's wrists in handcuffs, and as he tried to get the other one on her, she fought back. Robert would then slash Wendy's stomach with a knife, almost disemboweling her. In the struggle, she was able to get the upper hand, still grab the knife, and slash Robert's throat, and he would become unconscious. She runs directly out the door, bloody and partially disemboweled. She would then run to the nearest road and flag down any car driving by. Luckily, an elderly couple spot her, bring her in the car, and take her to the nearest hospital. What Wendy didn't know was that Robert would regain consciousness and drive himself to the same exact hospital that Wendy was staying in. At the hospital, police would question Robert because in his pocket, an orderly found the exact same handcuff key that was around Wendy's wrist. Police proceed to lock Robert up for attempted murder, but because Wendy is so terrified of Robert, she refuses to testify against him. The prosecutor completely drops the case. Vancouver Police Department were aware of at least 21 women vanishing in that area, but still refused to investigate. They assumed since most of the women were homeless or sex workers, they just skipped town. They would never think of an innocent nice pig farmer as one of the most hideous murderers in all of Canada. So the police let Robert go. They still collect his belongings for future evidence. In 1998, a whole year later after Wendy's attack, Bill Hiscox, a worker on Picton's farm, who knew of missing women in the area, started to connect the dots back to Robert. He knew Robert liked to visit the low track area looking for women. Hiscox would go to the police and tell them about his suspicions, and also tell police Robert would have a terrible joke to his friends about the meat grinder, that if they ever needed to get rid of a body, the meat grinder was the way to do it. Hiscox even told the police he had suspicions that Robert was serving human meat at his farm. Once again, the Vancouver Police Department still dismissed this and called Hiscox crazy. Later that year, Inspector Kim Rossmo developed a technique called geographic profiling. With this technique, he came to a conclusion that a serial killer was targeting the low track area. Again, the Vancouver police would dismiss this, denying of a serial killer and demoting Inspector Kim, calling his technique nonsense. A whole 4 years go by. A truck worker who made deliveries to the farm made a tip to the police that would then spring them into action. February 6, 2002, the Vancouver police executed a search inside Picton's trailer for illegal weapons. They said it was beyond disgusting, terrible smells, and just cluttered. But in all the clutter, an investigator would spot an asthma inhaler linked to Serena Abbotsway, a 29-year-old woman who'd gone missing in August 2001. Police would then warrant a second search. This time, they would find clothing, jewelry, shoes, and ID cards of several of the missing women. Investigators would then proceed to do a search of the entire farm. They would end up finding 200,000 DNA samples and seized over 600,000 exhibits. When everything was said and done, the entire investigation cost $70 million. In 2 outbuildings on the farm, they would find skulls, hands, and feet of many of the missing women, including many chunks of human remains. Picton would then be arrested of first-degree murder. The investigators would go back to the farm and find DNA of 33 other missing women. While awaiting trial, Robert in a recorded conversation would admit to his cellmate he killed over 45 women. He stood trial on January 22, 2007, a span of over 40 years of when these murders first began, and he would be charged in the deaths of 27 women. Robert was sentenced to 25 years to life, and what makes this even crazier is that he's eligible for parole. That's right, the man proved to killing 27 women and admitted to killing 45 will be eligible for parole and possibly a free man soon. Sit back and think about that for a second. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this story and you want to hear more of my stories ranging from paranormal to true crime, please subscribe and hit that notification button, as you are now in Minutes of Horror.